Valera snickered, tossing her ponytail. Admit it, you're just too busy sticking your nose into books to comb your hair, or bathe for that matter. Ah, here to take another jab at the hobbies of a prince. I must defend myself from your attacks. Bordak ducked into a crouch and playfully stalked the half-elf. Valera flipped the dagger in her hand. Sure you want to give that a try? Bordak laughed and retreated, touching Avarice's elbow and whisking her out the door. Valera sheathed her blade, mumbling angrily as she hurried to catch up. Why must you tease her so? Avarice giggled into Bordak's ear. She needs to lighten up. I'm surprised her time in Stonewall Court hasn't taught her our charming sense of humor. Avarice tucked at her dress, made of blue silk, rising high at the neck and falling into a long train behind her. It was a lavish gift from a lady of the highest nobility, Lady Tabitha Raybould. The two must have become fast friends, Bordak thought. Lady Tabitha Raybould is going to become a major character later on, so look out for her. Avaressa moved her hand down to her exposed midsection, a recent fashion trend that many of the ladies of Stonewall, both rich and of modest means, had recently taken up. The endless dash from one design to another reminded Bordak of a school of panicked fish, though he did enjoy the results of this particular new fad. Well, there are many things we are not used to yet, Avaressa said. It will take more than 3 months in the human kingdom for us to acclimate to so much change. Bordak slowed his steps to get a better look at the stunning elf who walked next to him. Her face was quite narrow, but round enough to give a youthful softness to her features. With her high cheekbones and pointed nose, she looked like the grandest image of nobility. Her black hair, darker than even a raven's wing, fell down past her waist. But her eyes held the quality that defined her. They shined with the brightest shade of green, and the strength, ferocity, and wisdom that exemplified elven women. From the very first day he saw her, he had been drawn to those eyes. Considering that you are used to wearing leaves and twigs, that is no surprise, Bordak said. I wouldn't expect to feel comfortable either if I was in Levendom wearing nothing but a fig leaf over my unmentionables. It is for that very reason I am glad that our meetings take place in my kingdom. Avarissa chuckled, and the sound of her voice instantly drew him closer to her. She smelled faintly of roses and mint. He took her hand, noting the dirt underneath her fingernails. You are in the gardens again? I'm sure my father will be pleased to hear that the elven princess is spending her time so fruitfully. Valera cleared her throat, signaling that he was getting much too friendly. Bordak quickly dropped Avarissa's hand, missing the pout that momentarily flickered across her face. Tease! There is something calming about flowers, especially those of your gardens, Avarissa said. They have been delicately tended, not forced to bloom through magic as in our forests. Though our goddess Ilia provides us sustenance through that gift, bless her, I find the roses sweeter here, and the fruit more tender. Bartek smiled as she lost herself in her reminiscence. Her voice soothed his worries as she ticked off the pros and cons of magical manipulation. I have noticed that as well, my lady, Valera said, adjusting her leather bracers. Human food often seems to taste better than ours, but I wonder if that is because we are simply experiencing it for the first time. And nothing beats a freshly picked starberry ripened by the goddess's own hands. Havaressa smiled. Sometimes she would forget that Valera was there until the half-den startled her by chiming in on even the most private of conversations. But that never annoyed her. She loved Valera. The woman who had grown up beside her was more than a childhood friend. She was a sister. She remembered the day she had stumbled upon her. "Father," the young girl cried, "look what I found." King Colleander, who had let his daughter wander off a little bit ahead of him, ran to her side. She was jumping up and down as she giggled, and shook her little fist. In a wicker basket slept a small child a few years younger than Avaressa. When her eyes opened, he saw that they were dark brown, nearly black. Shiny black tufts of hair sprung from her head and down to her shoulders. She wore a simple cotton dress and a gray wool cloak, and her feet were bare. She was clinging to something that was mostly concealed beneath her tiny body. Her ears were pointed, but only slightly. She was a half-den, a rare combination of elf and human. "Daddy, can we keep her? I really want a sister, please." "My dear child," he replied, patting Avaressa's soft head. "Go get Advisor Terrason. Tell him to bring parchment and quill. I will check on the child." "But Papa, I want to hold her now." "You are a princess, Avaressa. Remember what I taught you?" She pouted, pausing before answering carefully. "Princesses do not what they want, but what they should do." With a sharp whistle and toss of his silver hair, King Coriander summoned a buck to her side. The buck knelt and Avaressa jumped on its back. She sighed, but the thrill of the ride soon found her laughing. Later that day, King Coriander made a public announcement decreeing the child's family, and Avaressa had suddenly found herself with a little sister. Bordak's mannerism changed as they entered the grand hallway, passing by large chambers as they neared the council room. His shoulders stiffened, he stood straighter, and his usual smile was replaced with tight lips the closer he got to the room. "Bordak, why do you grow so nervous at these meetings?" Avaressa asked. "I'm not nervous. I just wonder what we will learn today." He feigned a smile. "It's just a monthly council between elven and human diplomats. We will talk of trade and the peace treaty that has existed for half a century." Avaressa paused and rearranged a loose strand of her hair. "We've been doing this for a while now. Nothing has changed." "That is true. Very little does change in the grand scheme of things. Yet each time we go, I learn more about the people surrounding me, and that knowledge is not always good." Bordak sighed, rubbing his eyes. "We will argue over more land or money, or about the squatters and the poor residing within our kingdoms." He slowed his gait. "I haven't seen my father or yours make much progress of late, and I grow tired of seeing my people suffer. Those of the nobility live in grand quarters, stuffing their faces and filling their purses with coins earned by underpaid laborers. Meanwhile, the very same men, women, and children who earn our keep spend their free moments begging on the streets." Avaressa felt herself defending her father's decisions, or lack thereof. A visible heat rose to her cheeks. "We trust these few to make the best decisions for us, don't we? These men and women of our counselors are older and wiser than us, which is why we place them in these positions to begin with. Surely they will know how to solve these problems. Once they come to a decision by next month, all will be well. The council just hasn't found the right course of action yet." She bit her lip, silently agreeing that the council did little more than arguing. Bordak lightly patted the elf's shoulder. "I do not mean to shame either your father's men or those of my father, Avaressa. I simply do not always agree with their politics. My father blames the poor for their own condition. He seems to forget class divisions came into existence with the advent of the Great War, caused by a member of our family line. Therefore, we are partly responsible for the current state of Stonewall." Bordak's pondering of his own words, the weight of the guilt, as well as the reality of the responsibility and danger of every decision he would make in his future as king, started to bring about a headache. "While that may be," Avaressa responded chipperly, hoping to ease the spirit of her friend, "the Great War did allow some of your people to rise out of poverty before humans were collectively, well, poor." Bordak chuckled. "That is indeed the truth. How does your father stand on such topics?" He speaks through others, allowing the decisions of the Elven Council to stand as the laws of Levendom. While I'm all for diplomacy, as leader of the Elven people, I would like to hear his voice on the matter. He could also use the support of the Dwarven King if he ever crawls out of his hole. Forcing down a bitter taste in her mouth, Avarosa had to admit everything he had said about her father was true. Her father had never been an active member of the Human Elf Council since its creation 55 years earlier. He often would find excuses for missing a meeting or would send an emissary in his place. After a few months, her father had stopped attending altogether, preferring to hold parties and feasts for his closest friends. King Stonewall was angered at first, especially after the death of his father who had founded the coalition, but he was quickly appeased with regular gifts of elven wine and candied fruit. Avarosa loved her father, but she did not love his childlike nature. As for the Levendom King, she could only hope he had a good reason for his absence. Secretly, she was beginning to think he was the wisest of them all, leaving the rival nations to their own fate. They stopped at the threshold of red doors so tall they seemed to reach to the heavens. Bordak looked at the pale reliefs carved into the bricks, his hand briefly touching his grandfather's picture. It always amazed him how one man had been able to change the course of history. "Well, here we are," Avarosa said, as the guards opened the door. "Do not fret, all will be well." Bordak smiled at her, but his smile did not reach his eyes. "You keep saying that. I hope you're right." And that is the end of chapter 1. I hope you would like to continue and read all of the chapters in my book. For now, I'm going to jump to some bookmarks. This is one of my favorites. I highlighted page 179, a part of page 179. In chapter 13, to Delavan we go. Here, this is Valera thinking to herself. Okay, she's about to leave with Clay and Bordak in the left hand to go to the Delavan Kingdom. Here we go. She had indeed found herself to be more lackadaisical since the separation from Lady Avarosa. She had disregarded much of her studies for the unwelcome, but not unpleasant imaginings of a red-haired man. There was no excuse for her lack of duty. She had simply grown bored of the many words and pages of books, especially when she could dream of something or someone much more interesting. She would never admit this truth, but she quite liked how Clay had taken over her thoughts. I think this right here really reveals a lot about Valera. I think this reveals a lot about Valera's dedication to the Levendom Kingdom, to Avarosa, and her, let's see, she reveals a lot about her dedication to the Levendom Kingdom, to Avarosa, and her, I guess we could say she puts her own desires to the back burner. To Avarosa, this excerpt reveals her self-sacrificing nature, which crops, but well, it follows her along in the second volume. Okay, so anyway, I like to make notes on my books, so there you go. Also, there we go. Okay, so that is just some of my brainstorming. Something I thought was really important. Okay, and I like this passage here too. If you go to, it's also in this one's also in, let's see, chapter 13, to the Levendom. Valera is explaining to Clay Bordak in the left hand what it's like losing magic to the circle and how it affects elves. So let's see. This is page 184 of the Kindle version. Normally, elves are immune to many of the diseases that take human lives, but this one was strong and powerful. It did not attack the cells of the human body, but the blood. And for elves, this is a very deadly matter. Our blood is our life force, and our life force is connected to the blood of the land. When the land around us, or our blood, has become corrupted, the physical effects on my people are devastating. And this is important because we're going to see later, there's two highlights here, sorry. We're going to see later that Karani is just completely stripped of magic because of the branding and the circle ceremony. And this has devastating effects in the second and third novel on every species. So I'm just going to make a note here. This excerpt directly relates to Karani and his branding. And stripping of magic during his youth. And if you look also at this particular sentence here on page 184, where'd it go? Oh, so without magic, elves are like infants. They rely on others to take care of them. That's very degrading for an elf. They rely on their gifts from the goddess, and when that's gone, they don't know how to function. It's not easy. You know, it's like a baby. You have to teach a baby how to crawl, how to walk, how to eat, all of these things. Elves having to do that in their adulthood or even youth is very degrading and mentally exhausting for them. Okay, let's see. Oh, here's another one, page 185. This is important because Karani is branded, and this is how you can recognize he is a Forsaken. The brand stays with the Forsaken for a lifetime, even after the magic is returned. And that is the crescent moon slashed in half. That is the brand. Okay, so even if Karani was ever to get magic, again, somehow return to his blood, he's still going to be branded, and it's still going to be a reminder of the separation that he has from the Elven people and from the very land that connects to his blood and from the goddess. And I'm just continuing on here about the branded. The mark represents not just the separation from our people, but from the goddess. The magic is never returned in the full amount it was taken. Yeah, so it's never going to reach that full potential. Although we're going to find out with Karani that there is something special about him. Okay, when an elf loses their magic, they also become mortal in a sense. Wounds heal much more slowly The amount of years you live is cut by nearly half, and there is a distinct sense of exclusion from Elvenkind. Like I mentioned, he has stopped eating and had lost significant weight. See, these events here are going to stay with him no matter what. Okay, then we find out Karani's efforts were useless. His poor mother wept furiously. Soon after, his father weakened and died from blood poisoning. After his death, Karani's mother moved into the woods under the care of older elves. So, more background to why Karani may have tension later on with elves. Okay, and we see that, okay, most of the elves don't just live like randomly out in the woods. They normally live in Levendom Castle, which is in the forest, but it's kind of melded with buildings that are created from magic with pillars. It's very like a Romanesque place. But older elves who kind of helped create everything, they tend to stay closer to nature. Alright, any other ones I should go through? Okay, so here we learn about Gray Whitaker, aka the Left Hand. He also likes to, he's like a scribe who likes to also write down the history of other cultures, as well as serving as the left hand or advisor to the King Stonewall. He says here, quite the harrowing tale. I will speak with King Stonewall about revising the elven punishment, if not eradicating it altogether. Now let's sleep, for we begin our journey early tomorrow morning. Okay, so we see Gray Whitaker, the Left Hand, is not just a cold-hearted noble. He does care about people, and people of all cultures, of all species, elven, dwarven, human. If he thinks something is cruel, he wants to fix it. And he listens to people. So it kind of adds grayness to his character, so to speak. He's not just a black and white character, and that's why he's one of my favorite characters in the book, in the entire series. Alright, so that's what I'm going to share with you today. I hope that you have enjoyed this small selection of Levendom, The Fall of Elvenkind. I hope you'll check it out on Amazon and buy your own copy, and just support, an aspiring writer, an aspiring author. And I've already finished my second novel, Stonewall, The Fall of Humankind. I'm going to be revising that Kindle version and getting it ready for publishing in paperback, so be on the lookout for that as well. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for your time. God bless.